We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall never surrender.
I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. These were the words that shook the world and shaped it. Today we take you on a visual journey through the life of Winston Churchill, from a spirited young boy in the 1880s to a world leader who stood alone against the storm. These images, now brought to life in full color, remind us not just of history, but of character, courage, and vision. Winston Churchill was not merely a man of his time, he was a man for all time. Born on November 30th, 1874, in the grand halls of Blenheim Palace, he came into the world wrapped in nobility and expectation. Yet even in his earliest years, Churchill showed signs that he would not be content to simply carry on a name. He intended to make one. As a boy, Winston was inquisitive, headstrong, and often rebellious. School did not come easily. Teachers described him as distracted, defiant, even a failure. But hidden behind his unfocused gaze was a mind alive with imagination and ambition. While others memorized lessons, Churchill dreamed of empires and battles, of speeches and glory. He saw the world not just as it was, but as it could be, if shaped by will. His strained relationship with his father, Lord Randolph Churchill, left a lasting scar. The elder Churchill, himself a prominent politician, doubted Winston's potential. His mother, Jenny Jerome, vibrant and politically connected, inspired in him a sense of charm, flair, and resilience. In many ways, Churchill spent his life trying to prove himself, to his parents, to his peers, and to the world. At Sandhurst, Churchill discovered purpose in the uniform. The army gave him structure, adventure, and a stage. As a young officer and war correspondent, he traveled the globe, fighting in India, charging with cavalry in Sudan, escaping from a Boer prison in South Africa. His writings made him famous. His daring made him respected. And by the age of 26, he entered Parliament, not just as a soldier, but as a rising star of words and vision. Over the next 40 years, Churchill's political path was far from smooth. He switched parties, from conservative to liberal and back again. He championed controversial reforms, faced bitter criticism, and weathered painful failures. He was praised as brilliant and condemned as reckless, often in the same breath. He made enemies as quickly as he made headlines. In the First World War, as First Lord of the Admiralty, Churchill pushed for the Gallipoli campaign, an ambitious but disastrous military venture that cost him dearly. He resigned, devastated, and returned to military service on the Western Front. Yet even in defeat, he learned, he observed, he evolved. As the 1930s unfolded, Churchill was largely isolated from power. Many saw him as a relic of the past. But while others looked inward, Churchill watched the horizon. He saw the storm brewing in Germany. He warned against Hitler's rise, against appeasement, against complacency. He stood nearly alone in Parliament, a voice crying out in a chamber that had grown tired of conflict. His speeches, filled with fire and foresight, were often ignored, but not forgotten. When war broke out in 1939 and Britain once again faced darkness, Churchill's moment returned. In May 1940, amid political chaos and military disaster, he was appointed prime minister. The situation was grim. France was falling, the Nazis were advancing, and the British people were bracing for invasion. Yet Churchill did not flinch. He stood before the nation and offered not comfort, but conviction. I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. Through the darkest days of the Blitz, as bombs rained down on London, Churchill's voice became the voice of Britain. He spoke not just to the country, but for it. We shall fight on the beaches, their finest hour. Never was so much owed by so many to so few. His speeches were more than words. They were lifelines. His confidence was contagious. His courage, unbreakable. Churchill forged powerful alliances. With President Franklin D. Roosevelt, he built the Atlantic Charter and secured American support. With Joseph Stalin, he navigated uneasy cooperation to defeat a common enemy. At Tehran, Yalta, and Casablanca, he sat at the table where the fate of the world was debated and defended his vision with sharp wit and steely resolve. Yet he was not without flaws. He made strategic errors. He held controversial views. His colonial instincts were criticized, and his decisions in India remained the subject of fierce debate. But even his fiercest critics acknowledged his singular role in rallying the world against tyranny. Victory came in 1945, and with it, Churchill's finest moment. Yet in a twist of history, the British public voted him out of office shortly after the war ended. He accepted the defeat with humility, reminding the nation that democracy had prevailed, and that this too was worth celebrating. He returned to power in 1951, this time as an elder statesman. Though slower in step, his voice still carried weight. He warned of the Iron Curtain descending across Europe and advocated for unity in the face of a new Cold War. But time at last began to catch up. In 1955, he retired from political life, having served in Parliament for more than 60 years. Churchill, however, was never just a politician. He was a writer, a painter, a father, and a husband. He authored more than 40 books, won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and painted hundreds of landscapes, often as therapy from the pressures of unity and unshakable belief in the right to be free. To study Churchill is not just to study war and politics, it is to study willpower. He taught us that setbacks are not ends, that public opinion can shift like wind, and that great moments often come to those who have spent decades being overlooked. He was underestimated, doubted, and dismissed. But when history needed a voice, his roared louder than any. In an era when our world faces new storms, division, uncertainty, global conflict, Churchill's life reminds us that leadership is not measured by perfection, but by perseverance. He was flawed, he was human, but he met the moment again and again. As you reflect on the images you've just seen of a young boy in curls, of a soldier atop a horse, of a prime minister beneath a helmet, of an old man raising his hat, remember that history is not made by statues. It is made by people who decide that they will not yield. This was Winston Churchill, and this was his story, told not just in words, but in color, in motion, in life. The past is not forgotten. It lives again through these stories, these images, and these voices. Thank you for joining us in History Gets Alive. Until next time, keep remembering, keep reflecting, and don't forget to subscribe our channel.